Tonight we have Stephanie Marrus from UCSF to give us a wonderful talk about how to start up a company. And also we have two amazing startups to give us a wonderful pitch later. But before that, I want to introduce our lead of this Cubase Center, Dan, to give a basic introduction about this program and also give an introduction about our center, how we get it started and why we wanted to do this. So Dan, you here?
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you hear me out there?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me out there?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you guys. So good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Zhang. I'm the Director of Marketing and BD at Cubase Center. So welcome joining the first webinar in Cubase Startup Accelerator Program. It's a great pleasure to have Stephanie as our first speaker in this program. Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome, Dan. My pleasure.
So first of all, I'd like to give you a brief introduction about Cubase. So here I want to share my screen of slides. Okay. Okay, so Cubase was founded in September 2018. It's a global platform to connect and support innovation and entrepreneurship. With a mission of platform and investment and services, Cubase is designed as an innovative business model which combines workspace, business exhibition, financial activity, technology cooperation, business services, and startup incubation. Cubase Silicon Valley is the first physical innovation center in our global layout. Besides Silicon Valley, we have set up the innovation centers in several countries already, including Israel, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Mexico. We are also launching our new sites in Canada and Europe in the near future. So every company in our platform has the access to our global resources. So Cubase Silicon Valley is sitting at the heart of San Jose. We have a 110,000 square feet building with a modern and spacious look, providing the companies an inspiring environment to grow their business. We focus on high-tech science industries, including biomedicine, IVD, medical equipment, AI-based medical services, and mobile medical care. Bringing together well-established enterprises, startups, support, and services, Cubase Center will contribute to building a new landscape of biotechnology industry in the Bay Area. The Cubase Startup Accelerator Program aims to help promising startups scale efficiently and effectively while increasing their technical know-how to compete in a global market. We hope it will bring together the brightest minds in the field of precision medicine to foster learning, innovation, and future development. I hope every startup in this accelerator program can achieve success with our mentors, advisors, and all the partners. So thank you. Okay, Michael.
Okay, Dan, thanks for the introduction. Just to let you know, when you are doing the presentation, if you have just one screen, just keep using the normal presenter. I mean, the normal presentation, because everybody is going to see the presenter's view.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dan, for the introduction for Cubase. Again, we are a very new organization and welcome to support us more. Okay, let's get it started. Our keynote speaker tonight is Stephanie Marrus. She is the director of the Entrepreneurship Center of UCSF. She helped a lot of companies from the UCSF to build up, help a lot of them getting angel round funding, the business development, business planning. And in addition to leading the center, she also has a class on entrepreneurship in UCSF. So we are very lucky today to listen to her talking on Zoom. I mean, without COVID-19, I don't think it's even possible. Before she joined UCSF, she was the CEO of SV Global Consulting for 8 years, advised international groups and universities entrepreneurship, taught, mentored, and judged international ventures, bring Silicon Valley expertise to local geographies. So she has tons of experience on entrepreneurship from the bottom to the top. I can't wait to see what Stephanie is going to bring us tonight. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for the invitation to be your first talk at the new accelerator here in Silicon Valley. It's always great to hear about new opportunities for teams to get some mentoring and co-locate when that's better. So I'm going to talk about how to start a company. And I'm going to touch on a lot of things pretty quickly because I don't have too much time. So just know that there's, a lot more information underlying the quick flash of a slide that you see. So let me get going. And are you running a chat, or is there not time for that? Q&A for.
There is. It's going to be a very short Q&A afterwards.
Okay, fine. That's all right. Up to you. All right. So, as Michael says, I run the entrepreneurship program at UCSF, and we've been starting companies out of the program. I teach a class, or used to teach a class called Startup 101, which was team-based, experiential, very Silicon Valley-like class. And we've successfully started companies that have raised funding out of it. So it's been a great pleasure to work with those entrepreneurs. And I'm trying to figure out why I can't advance my slide. I'm gonna have to, for a moment, let's see what's going on here. Slide, all right. Sorry, as usual, there's always a technical issue when you're presenting, right? Okay, so I don't know if I can do it. Let me try one more time to do it. Sorry, I guess I can't do it for some reason from the full screen, so I'm going to have to show you from a shared screen. So, so the first question is, why start a company? And there are a couple of reasons people start companies, actually probably more than a couple, but this is one that's very clear to people. A lot of people have passion about something, either something from their work, or if they're clinical, something from their practice. In this case, this man, John Crowley, had 2 children with a very rare disease called Pompe disease. And they were slated to die by age 5. And for him, it was not sufficient to sit around and wait for that outcome. So he ended up founding a company, and actually this is his second company. He got a job at Bristol Myers Squibb before he did this. He made the right connections, he raised money, and he started this. And the happy news is that his kids are now in their 20s. He literally cured them through his own efforts. So that's passion. Another example is Elon Musk, who says, I like to be involved in things that change the world. So impact is another reason people start companies. And you may have others, but the wonderful thing about the life science world is that, and are you all seeing these slides? Are they shared?
No, it's not.
Okay, sorry.
Can you just share your screen again?
Yeah, here we go.
Share the PowerPoint instead of the desktop.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Yeah, we can see that.
So just quickly going back, this is John Crowley. This is the company he started. This is Elon Musk, who wants to have great impact. And people have other reasons for starting companies, but in our business, in life science and healthcare, I'm proud to say it's not money that motivates people. It's making the world better, changing human healthcare, solving a big problem that is involved in clinical practice and so on. So the question people face is, okay, I've got an idea. It's an idea from my lab or from my clinical practice. and I think I could make a company out of it. And so that's a great goal to have, but it's not for everyone. So what do? How can you tell if your idea can be a company? You know, there's a big difference between being an academe and being in a startup. So in academe, you know, things are pretty relaxed. You just have to go from one grant to another. You write a grant, you sit around and wait for months. Maybe it comes through, maybe it doesn't. You do some research and so on. That's not the time scale in a company. In a company, things have to move fast. They have to move fast because there's a competitive situation, because there are investors who are expecting milestones to increase their value. So it's a completely different sense of time that's involved in accomplishing goals. A second difference is there's not as much rigor in academic research as is in commercial research. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard from pharmaceutical companies that all the research we've done inside the university, they're tossing out. They're just going to try to recreate it or do better studies, more commercially focused studies. They just don't trust what we've done. So we don't work to the same standard in academia. And then there's this huge cultural difference, which is a culture in a company of making something happen quickly, being quick on your feet, adjusting to situations, dealing with ambiguity and so on. Whereas in academia, it's pretty comfortable. You know, if you're a postdoc, you know there's funding in your lab. If you're a faculty, you know you're going to get grants, and so on. So big cultural differences between companies and academia. And then in academia, you have to think about how you're going to make money. Sorry, in a company, you have to think about how you're going to make money. You don't have to think about that in academia. That's not an agenda item. You also have to have a mission and a vision for your company. So what do you want to do? How are you planning to change the world? What's the focus going to be? And you need to communicate that mission and vision to all the stakeholders, whether they're investors or new hires or your founding team. And there's a lot of sort of telling the story of the company that's involved. And then you're always selling. You're selling to investors, you're selling to hires, you're selling to your team, you're selling all the time. And that's not always a comfortable thing for an academic to do. So there are some really big differences between the two. You know, we're accustomed to doing the scientific method in academia. And you all know what that is. You probably can't read the small print, but you know what it is. It's you have a hypothesis, you design an experiment, you run the experiment, you see if it supports the hypothesis through the analysis. And then if not, you maybe try another hypothesis. Well, I'm going to propose that that's what you do in a company to find out, or before you form a company, to find out whether your idea is something that is going to be adopted by the market. And that's called customer discovery. And customer discovery is just taking that scientific method and applying it to developing a business model. So again, you observe a phenomenon, you formulate a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, and then you go back again and again until you find something that's viable. And you have to figure out what your value proposition is. So what is the value that you're going to deliver to a customer? So examples. This is a digital health example, and I sort of made it up. But a value proposition in digital health might be an app that improves communication between the patient and care team, reducing adverse events 20% during an average hospital stay. That would be a value proposition. Another one is, this would be a therapeutic, reduce A1C, which is a metric for diabetes, with lab-derived beta cells. And I actually have a company that's working on that. So that is a real value proposition. So you have to think about that. First of all, what are the potential customers saying? How do they relate to your idea? And then secondly, What is your value proposition? And you can learn that from your customers. So you keep doing this until you get it right. And you often don't get it right in the beginning. So you have to pivot, which is change an element of your hypothesis and try it again and speak to more customers until at some point customers are validating. They say, yes, we had this. That would be amazing. We would buy it. We absolutely need to have it. That's customer validation. So this is a process that's going to help you find product market fit. In other words, is the product you have in mind, does it fit with some market segment that you've been able to identify? And therefore, you have a market and you could create a business. This is not easy. This takes multiple iterations until you get it right. But customer discovery, the testing of hypotheses for your business is the way you should do it. And if I could ask someone to turn off their speaker because I'm hearing background noise. It might be Haishan. I'm not sure he's on my screen.
I can help you do that. No worries.
Okay, thank you. So another thing that's really important to find out is what's the market size? How big is the market? Because if you want to involve investors, they want big markets. And I'm talking 500 million to $1 billion. That's true in therapeutics, in devices, in diagnostics, and in digital health. So the way that they can get their economics, and we're talking about venture investors, venture capital, is through large markets where you can take a share. And then another piece of market opportunity is how crowded is the market, what's your competitive advantage, and is that a sustainable advantage? So just keep in mind there are a lot of market dynamics and market sizing you need to do. Calculating the market size, well, you may say, well, I can just go buy some data out there. There are all these market research reports, and they say that the market for X is $22 billion by 2025. That doesn't really go very far, but that is the top-down analysis. But the more important analysis is this bottom-up, this customer discovery, where you're actually talking to a very large number of customers once you figure out what your product market fit is. And then finding out from them how likely they are to purchase your product. And you can use those numbers to project the actual market share. And these days, investors are expecting that. They don't buy these fancy market research reports. They buy customer discovery type of data. And if you walk in and say, we've done 100 interviews in our target market, and this is what we found, that goes a long way to establishing credibility. I love this quote from my colleague, Carl Handelsman, who's now at Roche Ventures. He said, you need relentless curiosity about the market, not the technology. And that's a difficult concept for scientists and technologists to get hold of. So another really important piece is the team. You know, who are you teaming up with as your co-founders or maybe your initial hires? This is something that investors look at very carefully. And the theory is nothing's going to go smoothly in a startup. So who's going to be able to make the right changes and figure out what to do when things go poorly, execute on a plan? It's the team, the people that you've chosen to work with you in those early days of the startup, and of course later on as well, who are going to be able to pull it out of some disaster and take it back on a smooth road. So team, super important. And then there are the payers. So who pays for all this innovation? You know, it turns out it's either the hospital or insurers. It is never, my next slide, never these people. So people always say to me, well, you know, the doctors love it. And that's great because they're going to add to your story when you are approaching the real payers. But these are the guys who pay. So it's not doctors, and it's certainly not the patients. You know, patients don't like to pay for healthcare. They believe they should be insured. And that's how they act. And of course, doctors never reach in their pockets either. So those are the real payers are the first two I showed you. Okay, so now we're into investors. What are investors looking for when they look at a deal? And I've just covered all those main topics. They look for the team. That's often the number one thing for exactly the reason I explained. They know that the team is going to make the difference and when things go poorly. They look for a big market, which is the only way they can make their economics. They look for this product market fit, that you have actually found the target market that really loves your product and will buy it. If you introduced it and then had some manufacturing issue and took it off the market, they'd be screaming, where is that product? When are we going to get it? You need that sort of passion from your customers to validate your idea. And then here it is in fourth place, the technology or science. And most of us who come out of the scientific world or the tech world are thinking, this is the most important thing. I'm going to tell everyone everything about my tech and they're going to love it and they're going to fund me. But it's not the way it happens. It's sort of assumed that you have some interesting technology or science or you wouldn't get in the room. But their investors are looking for these other factors. So sources of capital. There are many. They're all difficult to get, although right now we're in a boom. So I'm not sure if that's true in these few months. But I'll just quickly run through what some of these are for an early stage company. There are SBIR grants. It's a wonderful program. It's a US government program. There are grants under all the NIH, all the institutes under NIH. There's grants at NSF and at other government organizations. And this is small business innovation research. It's a way many of my companies have gotten started. They get a grant, it gives them a couple $100,000. They do some research that validates what they have to some proof of concept, and then they can go raise more money. And the great thing is the government doesn't take any equity. This is just free money. There's always friends and family, which is the way many companies get started. And is a great, you have to manage that because you don't want to be sitting at Thanksgiving table and having people scowling at you because you just had a problem, a hiccup in your company. But it's a source of money, people who trust you. There's seed funding, there's angel funding, there are family offices, which are organizations that around very wealthy individuals. Sometimes foundations give money out if you're working in their disease area. And then there's venture capital. So many different ways to go about it. They each are challenging. You will have to make many calls and visits to close one of these deals, except for friends and family and SBIR grants, which is straight grant writing. You have to build relationships. You have to get people to know you over time. You have to say, I'm going to do this in the next 3 months, and then come back to them and say, guess what, I did this. Just wanted to update you. These things take time. I'm going to leave out the crazy situation we're in right now where things are really getting funded quickly and a lot of money. So what should you do before you spin out of a university? Well, there are a number of resources, and at least in my university, and I assume certainly in all the Silicon Valley universities, that can help you translate your science before you spin out. So there are translational funds. Ours is called Catalyst. Not huge amounts of money, but money to get scientists to the next level, to some proof of concept. It has mentorship involved with it and scientific review. There's assistance with IP. Our tech transfer office will file IP for you if they think you have something promising and take care of all that initial IP diligence and filing. You can work to a proof of concept inside the university, and that is something you can take on the outside to validate that what you're doing has some some efficacy. There are mentorship and an entrepreneur in residence programs. So universities are great about aggregating people who are from the business community and helping our scientific and technical startups. There are classes and events. You have a chance to build your network, not at the university, but in other places by attending classes and events. And then you can start to plan your scientific advisory board through your connections at the university. So many good things from being in the university. So when do you spin out? Well, when you need to increase your pace and move faster. Again, the university is very slow and things go on. I've had entrepreneurs say to me, well, I can do this study and I'll have the results in about 24 months. And I'm like, that doesn't work. You can't have that kind of a timeline. You are going to be so outpaced by everyone else in the market. It's not going to be relevant. So let's think about what can you do in 3 months and how can you get closer to a proof of concept. You should start working on getting your team ready because again, the investors invest on the team and you need to have a well-balanced team, think through what you need people to do and then who could best do it. You can hopefully identify funding while you're still inside. So having conversations with investors, telling them you're ready to spin out, you've got a team together, you are getting to a proof of concept and starting to go through that process. You should have a business plan so that you know exactly what you're going to be doing, at least in the beginning. And you should have a conversation with your tech transfer office, finding out if they're going to be willing to license you the IP or option the IP to you. And that will depend on team, business plan, all these other things, funding identified. So I'm going to just skip over this for time, but there is something called the entrepreneurial personality. And you should make sure that you are actually comfortable with the culture of doing a startup. It is very, very different, not just in academia, but in being in a big company, even a big pharmaceutical company, big device company or whatever. And it's not for everyone. And startup life is not easy. It's kind of crazy. There are days that are wonderful. There are days that are horrible. You have to have the resilience to handle that roller coaster. In my network, there is a psychiatrist, a UCSF psychiatrist who specializes in entrepreneurs. So he has a busy practice and he tells us that, you know, these entrepreneurs have a tough time and a lot of them are very resilient and they just keep going, but just be aware that it's not all happiness and ease and so on. And lastly, I just want to leave you with a slide that tells you about the class I'm currently teaching. It's a master class from Silicon Valley. It's for startups. I've got 110 people in it from around the world. We are going through all the key topics for doing a startup company. I have peer forums with mentors from my network in it, and we're doing study groups and office hours and all kinds of great things. So just something to keep in mind as you progress through the accelerator and look at your next steps. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you for your wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Is there any questions? You have to open your speaker when you're asking.
I see a lot of
I have
black.
yeah. If you want to ask any question, you don't have to raise your hands or anything. You just open your speaker and say something. I have a question because I also do the startup from the very beginning, and also our IP has been spin out from Harvard. But my question is, you know, sometimes dealing with the university is like a paradox. On one hand, the Harvard does give you a lot of resources in terms of the fundraising and in terms of endorsement. But on the other hand, the OTD, the technology of the Office of Technology Development, can fight against you really hard for the ownership of the company as well. So standing on the point of the startups, how we are going to do to make sure the university is on our friend side instead of the enemy side.
Well, interesting to hear about your experience with Harvard. I hear that at Berkeley and UCSF and so on. So, the fact is the universities like to encourage startups. They really do. They want us to move forward, start a company. They prefer to do that than license the technology to a big company. But at the same time, they have their own economics and their own standards. So, the entrepreneur and university goals are not aligned. And some universities are tougher than others, but basically it's, an economic deal. And you as a principal in the company and coming from Harvard can't negotiate, I presume, that's our rule, can't negotiate directly with the tech transfer office. You have to bring somebody in to do that negotiation. Is that the case at Harvard?
Yeah, of course, it depends on your ability to negotiate with the universities, especially at the very beginning. It's kind of tough.
Well, we consider it a conflict of interest, so we don't even allow our entrepreneurs to negotiate directly with the tech transfer office. But of course, the entrepreneur knows what's going on and is a party to the discussions with the attorney who's doing the negotiation. And so I don't know what to advise you. It's just if you can find out what other startups have experienced and what sorts of deal terms they've been able to establish, that will help you get a base of what your expectations could be.
Thank you.
Sure.
We have another question sending from Yung Wei, saying, thanks for the nice talk, Stephanie. What would be the exit strategy for founders at the startup, especially when things don't go well? I'm assuming he's asking how to, either sell this company in a high price or how to exit this startup, especially.
Well, hi, Michael. Thank you for picking up my question. This is Yung Wei from Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I'm just wondering, for a biotech or pharmaceutical startup, it's very common for the company to fail in a couple of years.
Sure.
I would say the success rate for a startup in the pharmaceutical industry probably would be 10% or even less. So I'm wondering, what if things don't work out the same way as we thought, and how would you suggest we take the exit? When and how we should walk away, and after that, what should we do? Go back to the large pharma or go back to the school or something like that? Just wondering. Thank you.
Wow. Well, you shouldn't start if you think you're going to fail, first of all. And you're right; those are what the numbers are like. But you have to go in with a positive attitude, and that you're going to learn from other people who failed ahead of you. But science is science, and so on. I don't know if you're thinking of a therapeutics company, Yung Wei. Therapeutics.
Yep. Kind of for therapeutic companies mostly.
Yeah. So,
for example, if we discover a new oncogene target, we are going to hit that with a small molecule drug, and something like that.
Yeah.
Or a platform company, for example, if we have a new technique, like I can find a drug in a quick fashion, probably at half of the time normally people would do. Yeah, these two type of startups.
Well, are you saying you'd work half time in it and have a job? I mean, if that's what I heard, that doesn't work for investors. They want to know that you're 100% dedicated. But let me just try to answer your question. There a lot of things happen before you have success or failure of the drug. There are milestones that you should work to, which are various types of proof of concept. And if you hit some milestones, pharma may be interested in a partnership with you, or, in some cases, they might want to acquire you well before you're even through clinical trials, often when you're just preclinical, but maybe you've got some clinical experience. So you don't have to ride it to the end and run down that curve of 95% or whatever the number is of failures. There are lots of exits before you get there. But if the science never works and you can't be clever enough with a team to in-license something and try something different, or merge with somebody, or some other strategy, and you just want to shut it down, then you could try for an asset sale. And I've done that. I've got the investors 60% of their money back, so they were a lot happier than losing everything. And you have a responsibility to your investors as soon as you take outside money. So hope that's answered some of your question.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Just a follow-up question. So what do most founders do if they lose their company? Either way, if they sell their companies, or if the company just didn't work out?
Well, a lot of founders just keep going. So, if you love if you'll know if you're doing a company, whether you like being an entrepreneur or not. And if you really like it, then you probably are not going to fit well in a big pharma. It's just a completely different atmosphere. So, you might go either start another company or go to work for a startup company or a Series A company. You make a decision whether you want to stay in that world. And that's what I've seen. I mean, I've seen founders who are incredibly persistent, who I think have just disappeared. And then 3 years later, they show up and they go, guess what? I'm still working on that thing. And I think we finally got a proof of concept, and I'm going out and talking to investors. Or they say, my thing wasn't going any place, so I joined this other company that I met while I was doing the startup, and now I'm chief scientific officer, and it's going really well. So there are lots of pathways, and it's all part of networking. You're going to make connections doing the company, and build that network that you've your new network in the world of startups and entrepreneurs.
Cool. Thank you.
There's a saying in Wall Street: when things don't go well, try IPO.
That might work today, but probably not in 6 months.
Thanks a lot, Stephanie, for your talk.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so we have two startups is going to give a talk about their companies. The first one is going to be MedlyticsAI.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Ryan. It's a disruptive AI-enabled population health management platform, standardizing data for all health systems to enable the interoperation. Ryan Stein is founder and CEO of MedlyticsAI, and he is going to give us a talk about it. Ryan.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I'm just getting my technology set up here a little bit. Yeah,
share
thanks.
The screen.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm working on that. Yes, there we go. Share screen. Oh, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing. I think you have to give me access, Michael.
Hang on a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, let me go to presenter view. Can everybody see this as a presenter view? Do you guys see it?
Yep,
Yes,
I can see it.
Okay, all right, cool, here we go. So, hi everybody. Thank you again, Michael, for allowing us to participate in this accelerator. Stephanie, the talk you gave was excellent. A lot of useful material there for us to use and leverage as founders. So my name is Ryan Singh. I'm the CEO and founder of MedlyticsAI, and we also have my co-founder, Oscar Herrera, who is the COO. Funny thing about us, we've been working together. We've known each other since we were 16 years old. We went our separate ways after high school. He went to San Jose State, I went to UC Riverside. But one thing about like lifelong friends, especially the two of us, we've always liked to work together, and we've always had a pursuit for academia, and we've tried to do our best no matter what, and played sports together. So this is just a lifelong passion that's come together for MedlyticsAI. And MedlyticsAI is an AI-enabled population health management platform that is standardizing healthcare data to enable interoperability and precision health. So the problem, healthcare data, it just isn't interoperable. This is something that comes up in healthcare constantly. It's something that we see over and over again in the Becker's healthcare reviews, the EHR intelligence, or even podcasts. Time and time again, the problem says it has been solved, but it hasn't. And a prerequisite to understanding our population, right, a hospital's patient population, and getting to a point of precision medicine, you have to have data interoperability. Data needs to be able to come from multiple different areas and facets and address our health, right? It is so important. And so this is the problem we are addressing, and we're doing it with AI. So why now, right? Everybody always says, so what makes you guys, why now? Why is this the time to get your startup, in motion? Why did you guys come together? And it was COVID-19, 100%. In mid-March, the first 4,000 cases reported to the CDC, I believe 33% of them didn't even indicate whether the patient had been admitted to the hospital or not. 47% of them did not even indicate whether the individual had pre-existing conditions, right? And I believe another 33% didn't even show whether that individual died of COVID or not. This is our reporting. I mean, we've come such a long way with electronic health records. You'd think there's all this data and this should be easy and seamless, but it's not. And one of the big proponents of this is Mr. Anish Chopra. And I'm a huge fan of this guy. He was the first CTO for the United States government, right? And he shows how bad it is for us to just share simple data. I mean, a lot of these forms didn't even have address or the person's age. This is 2020. I can send videos through messaging, but I can't even access data from patients that had COVID. I think this is another big proponent for why mismanaging COVID, as far as understanding who has it, what populations are getting it more, right? And addressing health equity come into play, is because population health management does not exist, and we're going to make sure it does. And so we see the future of healthcare delivery being integrated and data-driven, right? And for the first time ever, the United States government has deemed a guide for interoperability. This guide is Health Level 7's FHIR or FHIR version 4. For the first time ever, we're asking EHR vendors, hey, you got to conform or you got to get out, because it's no longer in your hands. Every patient has the right to access their data, but not everybody's addressing it in an efficient and effective manner. We are, because we want to transform that data, and we want to bring together all those different data sets that are the databases that are siloed within a hospital's network, right? So there could be a database for all their imaging, where their lab data goes, another database that's just for the EHR, another database for diagnostics data, another database for other various data, right? That has to do with a person's electronic health record or just their health, right? And physicians are burdened with this. They're told that you have to open all these different screens to understand the patient, within a very short amount of time, because they could be dealing with a life or death situation, and also do your job, right? So you have to understand the technology, have a ton of windows open, and this data is not always accurate either. So we've streamlined it by creating a solution that's very unique, and it is going to revolutionize healthcare as we seek to support all healthcare systems and their change to value-based care and interoperability guidelines. So with our solution, you get a 360 view of the patient. It's really, it's very innovative in the sense that it's something that we should have been doing for so long, right? But it just hasn't been done. FHIR has set forth these standards, and they've done the math, they've done the hard stuff. They've coded out the different variations of a patient's profile and what that should be indicated. I mean, something as simple as allergies, right? A report was done recently on Kaiser's, I believe, Kaiser's network, and it's called Death by 1,000 Clicks. They said the third leading cause of death in the United States, and that's categorizing chronic diseases as one, cancers as one, is misinformation on an individual's electronic health record. The third leading cause. And so this is what our interface looks like. Everything is there. And you can see Mrs. Lacken is having the time of her life because she's getting the best care possible. And all of her data is on one interface that's very easy to go through, see, and just address the patient, right? And the best part is when the other databases in a hospital system update, our solution is asynchronous, meaning our database updates with that information, and we use NLP and ML to make sure that data point gets associated to the right person. So where does MedlyticsAI fall into digital healthcare, right? How are we going to be the change to facilitate healthcare moving forward? Simple. We are going to be the enablers of data, right? We're facilitating data and allowing the best data in a format that is easily able to be shared amongst disparate network systems and app developers. With the final rule comes the opportunity for app developers to create apps around electronic health records. Because now that people are going to be accessing their healthcare records more, there has to be somebody to manage that data. One thing that they don't know is that that data is not going to be very good if nobody transforms it. Nobody structures that data and makes it usable. So we've developed our solution. Essentially, will be supporting the healthcare industry and those building apps and systems to manage individuals' data, health data. So what makes MedlyticsAI so disruptive? It's kind of the things that I've already talked about, right? I mean, information blocking is something that is going to be penalized heavily. If an individual is not able to access their electronic health record, right, there could be a fine for that hospital system up to $1 million per fine. And we've gone around, we strategically built our solution looking to solve the worst problems with usability, with data standardization, with other issues that are constantly reoccurring in a hospital. So we are the first AI automated, interoperability enabled population health management platform. And what you see here before you are the different aspects of population health. All of these aspects are not fulfilled. They're not solved by any company out there right now. Quite frankly, most companies out there right now in this space use APIs to transform that data on the spot. One of our customers, Chalk, just give you an example of this, has 26 different FHIR APIs. 26 different FHIR APIs for each different resource or element. These are the use cases that we've kind of assembled. Each use case is a feature to our platform. And the biggest thing about machine learning and analytics and all these different types of infrastructure that already exist in the hospital system network is that how much better would they be if they had good data inputs, right? How much better can you predict disease if you had standardized data to use on your input for that machine learning prediction model? How much better can your analytics be if, you know, whatever you're using for analytics is able to use quality, usable labeled data? So we're not here to remove anybody, right? We're not here to challenge EHRs. They serve a very important purpose. We're not here to get rid of the analytics provider or vendor you might have. A great purpose, right? But we will standardize your data so you get the best ROI on your current systems, which then enables the best patient outcomes possible. And quite frankly, digital health depends on interoperability. It truly does. If you cannot seamlessly use different data points from different various data sources seamlessly, you're going to have issues. The most important and crucial part about delivering the best patient outcomes is having access to the right data at the right time by the right person. And we've put together a wonderful team, wonderful team. These are our advisors. They're some of the best, some of the most just thoughtful and intelligent people I've come to meet. We were founded this year, 4/13, and the amount of traction we've garnered is phenomenal. I'm sure that's said all the time, but I truly believe that we have a cohesive team mentality that is unlike any other company I've created or worked for. The advisors love to be on the team calls. They love to facilitate and help with different types of problem solving, right? And we've gotten some of the best in the business. And then of course we have myself, Oscar, and our software developer, Nikhil. This is our traction. Give you an idea of who we are talking to, how much customer discovery we have done, and where we're featured. AI for Healthcare has us featured on their vendor list next to companies like John Snow Labs, Prism Health, Element AI, H2O AI, so some pretty big names. Of course, the market opportunity for population health management, it's huge, right? But it's more so about delivering something meaningful to help do the dirty work so that we can achieve the best patient outcomes, right? And data standardization isn't sexy. By no means is it going to be solving some major disease, but to get to the point to where we can have precision medicine and precision health, we have to have interoperability and data standardization. And we're currently raising $4 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a wonderful presentation. I think Stephanie already have a question. You want to ask directly, Stephanie? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm off now. Thank you. I actually had a few. I was listening to the end of the presentation. So, Ryan, what do you see as the biggest barrier to getting this solution implemented in a health system?
Definitely the educational aspect, because healthcare providers, they're not the most tech savvy, especially with HIPAA, right? Technology has not caught up to healthcare like it has with the different industries. I think for us there's something that I keep time and time again, this keeps coming up. There's a different understanding of an API in healthcare than there is in tech, right? They believe that the API will transform this data that's unstructured, give it to you seamlessly, and that everybody can just integrate. But they don't really focus on the filtration effect, right? If you keep using APIs to transform data and grab data, it's going to get, it's just not efficient. It's not effective. And I think the biggest barrier is the educational side of it. And it sometimes comes down to convincing them, like with evidence-based research, like, look, this is what's happening, right? And like, this is what is going on with your current providers. Like, this should be something you guys should already have. And it almost feels like they've been kind of brainwashed. Like a lot of these CIOs that I talk to, that these EHR companies kind of have put their foot on their necks and they've kind of got them cornered. So that's kind of been the barrier to entry, is just the educational side.
Okay, and so when you talk about traction, I wasn't sure what you meant there. Are these customers? Are these people you're talking to? What's on the slide?
Yeah, so Children's Hospital OC, we have a contract in place. We're actually just working out the kinks, which is just like doing the data agreement, the scope of work that we're doing. And their use case was they cannot access 40% of their clinical notes in an ambulatory setting because they're unstructured, 40%. And something as simple as keyword filtering, right? And doing small patient summaries could help them address more patients, right? And we found that on average, the EHR that they use is Cerner Millennium. And Cerner Millennium, there was a research study done by Dr. David McCallie Jr. of Cerner, former VP of Informatics. They found that on average, a physician spends 16 minutes and 14 seconds on the EHR per patient. And of that time, 5 minutes and 22 seconds accounts for chart review. Now that goes right into, yeah, go ahead.
You're going to structure unstructured data.
Yep. And by doing so, I mean, just by that saving 1 minute on chart review, and that's a very, very, like, you know, it's conservative. We're going to enable for each physician to see up to 3 more patients per shift per physician.
Okay, and my last question, so I don't dominate this, where do you get for $4 million? What milestone are you going to hit?
Oscar?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm just talking to my counterpart there, Oscar.
Oh,
this is his.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a question directed towards him.
So you're asking where the $4 million comes from?
No, I'm asking you, what are you going to do with it, and what milestone is it going to enable that increases the value for investors?
Okay, no, that's a good question. So the $4 million will enable us to keep the company afloat for 18 months and allow us to reach a revenue of $1 million. So that's what we're hoping to get out of it. And as far as customer wise, where that $1 million comes from, it's about four customers. So there's a 5th customer in there, but it's just now starting at that 18th month mark. So about 4 customers. Yeah.
Okay, well, so
that might help, Stephanie.
Pardon?
I said that might help. I should have put on the financial breakdown.
It's way too much detail. It's just, I'm accustomed in an investor ask, which I think what you were doing is like,
yeah,
what am I going to get for my money? And it's not this detail. It's like, we're going to build a sales force. We're going to finish the product, build a sales force, and book $1 million in revenue. That would be an answer. I think that's maybe kind of what you said, but anyway, that's
yes. So the 4 million essentially, you're right. The 4 million essentially is going to go to being able to fully develop our MVP to the point where each different use case that we come across is a feature that we sell to our existing customer base and really allow us to scale and do outreach. All of these customers have all been inbound. We have not reached out to any single one of these customers. They have come to us specifically just from being on AI4 Healthcare's website as a featured vendor. It's really been a blessing. And so I can only imagine how many customers we can turn from inbound to potential customers in our funnel if we had the, I guess, money to spend on efforts such as marketing, to hire a sales team that can reach out and start to address these different pain points that customers are having, that PHM with population health management within population health management that we can solve. That's really where it's going to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have our last company, Amplified Sciences. The company got the technology license from Purdue University and has developed a platform that can scale to the point of care. They focus on detecting and preempting the risk of degeneration diseases, including the lethal cancers and organ loss. Diana, you here?
I'm here. I'm preparing to share my screen.
Diana is president and CEO of Amplified Sciences. She's going to give us a talk about it. Floor is yours, Diana.
Thank you very much. Can you see a shared screen?
You can put it on.
Yeah, I'm in display mode.
Yeah. Can you just change the slides just to make sure it's working?
Yes.
No?
I don't know why we're having problems with this tonight, aren't we? It must be something in.
Yeah, just try it again with your. Yeah, it's working. It's working.
Okay, good. All right. As long as I don't need to go back because it's not wanting to do that. All right. Well, good evening. Thanks, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, a little after 10 o'clock Eastern time. So I know we're all over the world. So it's exciting to see so many time zones brought together by this effort. And Michael and team, again, thank you for putting this program together and allowing us to be one of the inaugural startups in the program. So I'll try to go through this course slide deck. It's a pitch deck. I'll do it as a pitch somewhat, but then hopefully we can have some dialogue at the end. Let me start before I dive into the pitch, though, and sort of give you a bit of a background on Amplified Sciences and why we're different. So unlike most diagnostics company, have a suite of composition of matter IP that is tied to our chemistry platform. And our assay, which is for earlier detection of pancreatic cancer, is going to allow us to demonstrate really the investor investment thesis that will allow us to demonstrate our ability to meet a huge unmet medical need in pancreatic cancer and quickly scale and launch to gastroenterologies in a fairly short period of time, within 2 years. So we're kind of unique because we have composition of matter IP, which many diagnostic companies do not, much more drug-like in terms of that. We are addressing what's considered a rare and orphan disease because it's rare, but it is the 4th deadliest cancer. And we can move pretty quickly to launch as a lab-developed test in a CLIA lab, which is planned for 2022. So our first mission is focused on revolutionizing pancreatic cancer detection. So I'd like us all to imagine for just a moment that we are patients. You've had a couple weeks of stomach problems that's not resolving itself. So you book an appointment with your primary care physician. She thinks it's your gallbladder, so she orders a CAT scan. The CAT scan comes back clean for your gallbladder, but she says she has to send you now to a specialist, gastroenterologist, because you have a cyst on your pancreas. You go home and do some Googling and you're scared because you realize that while not always malignant, that a pancreatic cyst can be indicative of pancreatic cancer. So you're scared. You go see the gastroenterologist and he tells you that I just can't remove this cyst, unlike in some parts of the body, because the surgery to remove it is called the Whipple procedure, and it in of itself is a dangerous procedure. So what's the problem? The problem is that we have an explosion in the marketplace of the detection of these cysts on the pancreas. Imaging is our friend. Because imaging is getting cheaper, faster, more effective. We didn't used to be able to see very deeply down into the abdominal cavity, and we can now. We're picking up things all over the body, but particularly on the pancreas that we never could see before. So they call this incidental cyst detection, meaning these patients are asymptomatic. And if you know anything about pancreatic cancer, you know the majority are discovered in stage 4, and patients are asymptomatic into the very late stages of pancreatic cancer. So when you find a cyst, you have to do something about it. Pancreatic cancer is the 4th deadliest cancer, and 74 out of 100 patients are dead within their first year of diagnosis. It's an awful cancer. And the surgery to remove these cysts, you just don't want to do it if you don't have to, because there's a 40% morbidity rate which includes a 7 to 10 day hospital stay, costing the healthcare system $120K plus for just one visit. Then there's follow-on high infection rate. Type 2 diabetes is always induced, and sometimes it induces lifelong diabetes. So the management of these cysts, there's only 1 million patients. It's big enough to create our first initial market potential, but 1 million patients get detected with the cysts, but it costs our healthcare system $4 billion to manage this. So all parties involved are really motivated to do something to reduce unnecessary surgeries, follow on, but really be able to recognize those patients that truly might have a malignancy or a pre-malignant cyst. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is our poster child in this arena. She was a colon cancer survivor first, and then in the late 80s, they did a full body scan on her because she's a Supreme Court justice, and they discovered a cyst on her pancreas. They removed it, it was malignant, and then as we all know, until recently, she had her then third bout with cancer, which was lung cancer. And if they'd not found that cyst and removed it, she would have died much sooner. So here's the scoop on the competition. The current standard of care for molecular diagnostics is really low in accuracy, ranging from the mid to high 80s in total accuracy, plagued by both high false positives and false negative rates. So there really is a gap in truly giving clinicians the guide on what to do about these cysts. So let's talk a little bit about the market size. Before I get to pancreatic cancer and diagnostics, on the left is just a reminder to many of us that are in the IVD space that the total in vitro diagnostic global market is 88 billion. We play in the molecular diagnostic space, which is one of the fastest growing, 10 billion. And just a reminder that 70% of all healthcare decisions are made using diagnostics. And certainly COVID-19 has spotlighted our industry really to a spotlight that we haven't seen ever before. So our TAM, SAM, and then potential for the first lead product, once we get a 25% market, cascades there, 2.2 billion, yielding a potential of an $80 million first product with 25% share of market on those patients, again, based on that million patient number. We've done top down and bottom up modeling on this. It's not a perfect number, as I think Stephanie alluded to, but it has really tested the time with many medical specialists as well as reimbursement folks. So what is the solution? So our proprietary lead reagents called PanCyst Pro. We use a very small amount of that pancreatic cyst fluid, which is key because that cyst fluid is hard to get to. It's gotten to through an upper GI procedure called EUSFNA, where they take out an aspirate intra-abdominally. And so this is also a problem of small sample sizes, and that's where Amplified Sciences excels. So it's a minimal sample assay to look at a protease biomarker. Proteases are enzymes, if you all remember biology. And what we do is we take our reagent, which is starved there biodiag protease substrate. It's a simple assay in a cup. We combine it with the cyst fluid of the patient. If the biomarker that shouldn't be there is there, it cleaves our dyes, our chemistry dyes, and we read the dyes and we say, that's mucinous or highly malignant, potential for malignant. And so the first test is actually a rule out test. I'll talk to you about business model in a moment. It really will be a first in class differentiator rule out test. It beats the competition. We've got proof of concept data I'll share in a moment, and accuracy, and overcomes those sample size limitations. And as Stephanie alluded to, best yet, we have a $4,000 reimbursement path set by our one of our competitors that we can follow. We're not confident we're going to actually try to go for a $4,000 full. We've got modeling at $500, $2,000, $3,000, up to $4,000, but we've got a great reimbursement special member, former Exact Sciences on our team that feels confident we're going to get in that $3,000 to $4,000 range based on the precedent and the unmet medical need. We feel we have a very high probability of technical success. This is data head-to-head against the standard of care, which is in blue, CEA, a standard specificity and sensitivity. And you'll see strong AUC for PanCyst Pro. And then once we combine it with CEA, we got 98% sensitivity and 100% specificity. This is 120 patient samples that were banked pancreatic cyst fluid, and they were validated against resected pancreases, meaning post-surgically removed. So we knew from cytology results whether they were cancerous or not. Our business model. So phase one is what we're focused on right now, and the use of funds of our seed round is that first-in-class rule-out test. However, we've already submitted an SBIR grant. We're focused on a genetic malignancy, looking at microRNA and protein markers to combine both a rule-out test with a rule-in using the same amount of small pancreatic cyst fluid. Our business model follows Exact Sciences. They certainly have been in the news with the recent acquisition of someone that's in all of our spaces, the liquids biopsy space. So both, I think, the Thrive, which Exact Sciences purchased, as well as the Grail acquisition by Illumina, has spotlighted cancer diagnostics and liquid biopsy. So we'll start, as they did, a traditional molecular diagnostic company with a mix of LDTs, lab developed tests, and CLIA and 510K products. We'll scale through a quick follow-on pancreatic cancer assays, and then we'll rinse and repeat to other disease states. We do have existing publication in kidney disease, chronic kidney disease. So what's our commercialization strategy? It's going to be a mix of targeting on key opinion leaders and getting publications pre-launch. We'll launch with a direct sales force, but the beauty is there's only about 50 to 70 large gastro offices that do high volume of this procedure with potential pancreatic cysts that could be cancerous. So we can very much, as a startup, launch targeted to those gastro practices. And then the reimbursement blue bubble is there on purpose because that's so key and instrumental to commercial success. Our progress and path to market. So we had a pre-seed phase that was really founder, Dr. Joe Davidson, the Purdue inventor of this. He really shepherded the company in early days. They received some black and gold awards out of Purdue University, those kinds of smaller investments that Stephanie was alluding to that are so key. Also received an NSF grant, and then had in-kind use of lab and personnel by Bruker. Bruker is our instrument partner. So this is a Serge Raman spectroscopy read. It's an optical reader that has the best amplification, although we do work in standard plate readers and other instruments. So we've raised 1.1 million to date. It's the longest closing seed round ever, I call it, because we got above the minimum the week before shelter in place went, at least in effect in Indiana. We are in Indiana. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, and our lab and Purdue University are 1 hour north. So I do the committee now because it's important that we've got the right CSO guidance from my co-founder, Joe Davidson, at this phase. So we delayed because of COVID for about 2 months opening the lab. I delayed again paying myself for a couple months until we really felt confident we were ready and could open safely there. Purdue didn't shut down those facilities. We're in one of the top 10 largest parks that's been recognized traditionally of having amazing facilities. So our chemistry wet lab's there, and we have access, of course, to some shared lab space and resources of Purdue also. So what are we going to do at the 1.2? So 1.2 million is our max over subscription. There's still a little bit left in the round. If anybody wants to come in to help me get to that 1.2, we're going to keep it open till the end of the year. So we're going to do technical and clinical assay validation. We've already scaled and locked since May, opening the lab, our chemistry platform and manufacturing processes. We're currently maximizing and really making sure we understand the assay optimization before we go and locking of clinical validation. But we'll be using bank samples that we have access to through an NIH effort called the EDRN that's been banking for 12 years pancreatic cyst fluid. And Dr. Kim Kirkwood at UCSF is our partner there, and Dr. Al Haddad at IU Simon Cancer Center is also going to help us with a little bit of prospective sampling. So we can use medical waste, so we don't have to do clinical trials. And we hope to secure a minimum of 300K in SBIR grants that have non-dilutive funds to supplement this and even continue to develop our platform and future reagents. So here's the team. I've got 2 PhDs working in the lab right now, and they're under the guidance of Dr. Joe Davidson, co-founder. He's danced with industry for years. He's already licensed IP to Millipore. We met actually. It's an academic tech transfer story. So I was a Purdue entrepreneur in residence in 2018 after I sold my first company. So I sold Pearl Pathways, which was all things regulatory quality and a clinical division anchored around an IRB to my co-founder, because I wanted to get back to my roots at Lilly, and I wanted to work on a product. That was a consulting regulatory services company. Great 9-year run, but I wanted to bring a product to life. So I went up to Purdue and supported about a half a dozen at first, and then a dozen in the end, startups. And Joe is the first inventor they introduced me to. They knew he was looking for a CEO. So I've got 2, soon to be 3 PhDs working in the lab under Joe's direction. And then we've assembled a great mix of clinical experts, a couple I've already mentioned, as well as a friend of Stephanie's, Dr. Charlie Craik, who's at UCSF and is a protease expert, since this is a protease activity-based assay. Our CFO is actually a former CFO of one of our investors, Elevate Ventures, Linda O'Keefe. And our real world folks are Andy Cothrell and Patty Connolly, both of which has translated dozens of reagents and launched commercially. Patty more on the inside lab part, and Andy on the external commercialization. And Tom helps us with regulatory, both CLIA and FDA. So here's the sell slide. Why you'll succeed, the right team. It's a fast path to market, validated clinical need that's real, a scalable platform place so we can rinse and repeat. And again, when I'm talking to VCs, that's especially important so they understand that this is just the first application. We've got great partners in place with really Bruker as our lead instrument partner. We've had a lot of great, strong external validation. We actually won the MedCity News Diagnostics category at their Invest conference, which online. They're supposed to be in April, and of course they pushed that. We also made finalists in the diagnostics division on the Buzz of Bio contest recently. And we had pretty good success in the matchmaking at Bio as well. As we were highlighted last year in the Texas Life Science Forum, and we were selected by NIH via NCI for the prestigious Application Assistance Program, where we got a personal coach for 10 weeks that helped us on our most recent SBIR application. I highly recommend that program. Look for AAP, check out our LinkedIn profile, and you'll see I have a link in there for a posting to the AAP, but it's a great program. It's rigorous. You've got to really dedicate the time, but it's fantastic. I skipped over this heavy M&A activity going on. Of course, right now, the 2 I've just mentioned are dominating sort of the airways in terms of both Thrive and Grail's recent acquisition, multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. So I invite you to join us in building a diagnostic company that's focused on devastating disease and detecting it earlier. Here are a sample of the institutional investors, and on the round, we do have a heavy angel group, and we're really Golden Seeds investment that came out of the Silicon Valley group. So we did go through due diligence with that group. A mix of Midwest, coast to coast as well. And the terms of our seed round are there on the note, and our UCSF funds are both there for your reference. And I'll end with, yeah, it is kind of wonky on me here. My contact information, if anybody wants to shoot me a LinkedIn invite, would love to connect.
Sure, I can send it to everybody later.
All right. Well, for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time getting the.
Nice talk. You don't want to shut your computer right away. We still need you for the Q&A. I thought you were going to shut your computer.
No, I just stopped sharing because I couldn't seem to get I'm going to try to share again and see if I can get the last slide to come up. Yeah, I'm having the problems that Stephanie had now for what reason. Zoom is great when it works, right? But it's not letting me share that. But I can put my email address in the chat.
Yeah. You can put it there. Actually, you can send it to everybody. You can do that in the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So questions, thoughts, comments?
Well, I'll repeat what I put in the chat. Really nice presentation, Diana. You hit everything you should have hit and did it really well. It was very clear. So it's a great model for cubing.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Are there any questions? for the IP part, so has it been figured out? Has it totally been licensed out from Purdue, or Purdue's to take a part of it?
Yeah, so we do have first and second gen of the IP that have been, the second gen's more global in nature, not the first gen, that's US only, that have all patents have been issued. Our last divisional European patent came through this summer, so they've all been issued. And I have to say great things about Purdue's tech transfer and how they partner with us, and were patient actually. When Joe kind of originally ran out of money, right, from the pre-seed phase, and had to pause a little bit with them. And then when I came on board, you know, we kind of renegotiated terms, and they've been great to work with. I really feel like our program manager is a partner with us.
I mean, how do you? I mean, was it that your project in the Purdue, or I mean, how do you collaborate with some labs in Purdue? How the project is started?
Right. Yeah. So this was invented in Joe Davidson's lab, and they have a. I'm forgetting the name of it now. Oh, maybe Stephanie will know the name of it. Basically, a friends and family package for IP that is invented by either faculty or a student at Purdue. Express license. Yes, an express license. So, you know, first there's a really easy terms option to license, and then an express license. And if you hit certain milestones, right, you're eligible for some of these. So that's, you know, the friends and family kind of great handholding, I think was great. That was really a lot before my time, because I took helm and we reset founders round in May of 2019. But today they're still incredible partners. We do work with them with a commercial agreement to work and have some of their folks work off campus in our labs at site. Purdue is in the real estate business, so they own a bunch of real estate all over the state of Indiana, and they've got one of the largest, Purdue Research Park is one of the largest academically owned incubators of startups. And you know, their model, we have everything from the cool hip rail yard that isn't active right now because of COVID, that, you know, would do events almost every night and happy hours and, you know, coffee chats and all that entrepreneurial ecosystem, to multinationals that use some of their, but the most of us are smaller startups, and where they're using, you know, our own dedicated lab space, but we enjoy also all the resources across the campus as well. And, you know, so we've had to figure out how to navigate that so we can get the per hour use of mass spec and all that good stuff. But it is great that we do have that available to us.
Fair enough. Nice talk, Anna. I just share your information in the chat box so everybody can see that. We're also going to later to our mentor. So hopefully, I mean, all the best to you and to Ryan for the next run. Yeah, looking forward to that. Actually, we will have a discussion later, probably once we, I mean, the program is in the middle age, like to the end of this year. We will have another discussion to talk about what we probably we can do. QB can serve you guys, and we can start from there. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks a lot for coming tonight. Our next event is gonna be November 13th, and Tania Fernandez, who's gonna be the mentor for that event. We will have 2 startups pitching that day as well. Thanks a lot for participating. And is there any other questions? Dan, you got
Michael, on the 13th, is it going to be this same time, or is it going to be
same
earlier?
Time? Same time. It's like 13th and also 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern time started.
Can we possibly get a copy of the recording? I don't know if that was addressed earlier.
Yeah, sure. I think we can arrange that. Dan probably have that on our iCloud, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can share the video with you.
And also, we have a lot of viewers on the Facebook and the YouTube channel. So thank you guys. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you for having us.